college students will be back at home for the holidays. And while many families gather around the dinner table, we know the conversations from there can be, well, pretty interesting. From politics to perhaps appearances, be mindful. Some comments can be harmful, especially if the person is struggling with an eating disorder. Joining me now is Memorial Hermann Southeast registered dietitian Isabel Vasquez. Good morning, Isabel. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
How negative eating habits among teenagers? How can we identify those negative eating habits?
Well, if you see that your teen or your young adult is coming home and they're eliminating some of the major, the food groups, for example, they're like not eating any carbohydrates, they eliminate fats, they don't want to eat fats, or they're afraid of eating sugar, that's a warning sign. Also, they're skipping meals. They don't want to eat with the family. They're, being isolated. They start doing different rituals around food, like hiding food and things like that. Also, you need to be aware. If they're constantly dieting, looking at food labels, overconsumption, over worry about calories, check. Another thing that I want to, for you to think about it, is that it could go the other way. It could be that they're overeating, overconsumption of the food in a short period of time. That also would be a concern. But think about also the physical changes that sometimes we also need to be aware. If they're losing a lot of weight, if they're talking about the body image, if they don't have the menstrual period, if they're feeling cold or they're having constipation, if they're doing excessive exercise, those also are signs of that a possible eating disorder.
So just being aware, being cognizant of your child when they are home. If you notice something is different, how do you approach your child about the situation?
I think that's a very delicate topic to talk with your young adult or child or teen. First, try to have like a conversation when you're not in a rush, in a private place. And then when you're approaching teens about eating habits, it requires a gentle, non-judgmental approach. And so started by first expressing yourself, what you're concerned about, but be a good listener. Listen to their concerns and what they have to say. And then instead of making accusations, make sure that you're there for support, that you love them, that you want the best for them. For example, especially for the kids that are going back to college, if they're on denial, and they say to you, no, I don't have any problems, I'm okay, and they're defensive about it, one way that you can approach is by saying something like, before I feel comfortable in sending you back to school, I need to make sure that you're okay. And that's a good way to get a help, your doctor involved to help you.
Oftentimes when we think of eating disorders, we think of girls, of women. Men are also at risk. How can eating disorders manifest and impact men?
And in men, actually, that's a really important point, because I've been seeing more, men, especially if they're involved in sports, they start using a lot of supplements. They're over-exercising. Those are also signs, for men, because of course sometimes you don't see other signs, or sometimes men, they're more quiet, they don't express, their concerns. So you need to be looking at if they're involved in a sport, if they're overdoing it, then start checking, and they stop eating, then be aware.
And of course, social media, I imagine, plays a big role in these types of situations.
Absolutely. I think the social media, the influencers, that they talk about diets that are not realistic. Of course, it takes a toll sometimes. But when we think about eating disorder, we need to think that it's multifactorial. There's so many issues. Genes are involved. Of course, the environment and what they're listening to is another factor. Kids are more prone to low self-esteem, depression, anxiety. So it's more than just the social media, but it definitely plays an important role.
Yeah, just one of the many factors involved. Isabel Vasquez, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. We appreciate your
Oh,
time.
absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure. And one thing that I want to say to the parents, if you suspect that your kid has an eating disorder, please, early intervention is the most important thing that we can do for them. Go ahead and make that appointment with the doctor.